everybody, Zach here from Mythos Pedals, and today we're here to talk about something you guys have been asking me about for a long time. We're here to talk about the Mjolnir, but not just any old Mjolnir. I've made the why I made this video. We're here to talk about all the differences between the standard Mjolnir and the Wildwood Mjolnir and the Joey Mjolnir and the Mass Street Music Mjolnir, all the Mjolnirs that we currently make, and we'll touch on some of the ones we've made in the past. So, the standard Mjolnir, this one, the gold Mjolnir in the 125B enclosure. This is our idealized take on the classic Klon Centaur style circuit. And we love this pedal. This is our attempt to give that sound to every guitar player at a reasonable price that is tuned to be a little bit more friendly for most players' rigs. The original circuit is great and I love it, but some people have some faults with it. So I'm trying to smooth out some of those rough edges that people complain about. So this has a bit less gain. It has a little less treble and a bit more low end in both the clean and the dirty sounds. It's a little less mid-forward and it doesn't have a charge pump currently. The older ones did. So if you don't know if it has a charge pump or not, don't put more than 9 volts into it because you will blow it up. But the current ones don't. And so it gives it more of an overdrive characteristic. It functions the same, how the gain pot works when it's all the way down. It's still the full clean mix, so it works really well as a boost. But when you start using it as more of an overdrive, I think it sits a little bit better in most guitar players' setups. So the biggest question we get asked is, what's the difference between this Mjolnir and the Wildwood? So the Wildwood we make for Wildwood guitars out in Colorado. This is my attempt to copy my personal Klon Centaur, serial number 1666. That Klon sounds great, and initially this was just a fancier version of the Mjolnir, but after I got the real Klon, I realized I wanted to copy it. So the current iteration is as close as I can possibly get it to my actual Klon. So it has everything that you would expect. It has a charge pump, even has battery clip, has germanium diodes. It has all that stuff kind of rolled into a smaller, more pedal board friendly version of that classic circuit. And to my ears, it nails that sound. All the kind of mid-forward voice, it's not overtly honky, but it does really cut in the mix. Real Klons, compared to a lot of clones, seem to have a wider frequency that comes through, a little more treble, a little more bass, and it's tuned to just sound as close to that as possible. We went through this circuit and compared it to my Klon Centaur and changed a lot of components just to nudge things in the directions that we wanted so it sounds identical. And the pots kind of hit the same because the potentiometers and the placement of the knobs does play a big part in kind of feeling like the original Klon Centaur. So that's the Wildwood. This is more everyman friendly. This is a copy of my Klon Centaur. Now, we make some others in the larger box. What's the difference here? So let's start with the Germanium Mass Street Music model. That is this one, made for Mass Street Music out in Lawrence, Kansas. Hit them up. It's in a satin aluminum box. And this circuit and this circuit are technically the same. The only thing different is it's a different PCB, and this has germanium clipping diodes. This does not. The different PCB gives this thing a slightly different sound. The layout, and this is something that if you've ever watched a live stream of mine or heard me talk about design, the layout of the circuit board is a huge part of the overall personality and character that a circuit has. And even though on paper, this and this are technically the same, despite the diodes being different, even if we use the same diodes in this, they have a little bit different feel. It's got this sweeter sound. It sounds really good. Not that this is not sweet, but this just compresses in a different way. And in all the pedals we use when we're using germanium diodes, they are all new old stock. They're old school. They're basically the same. Some of them are exactly the same as to what the real Klon Centaur used. Now, the difference between this and this is the diodes. That's it. and the enclosure, of course. This is the Joey Landreth version of the Mjolnir. We decided to go back and revisit the Joey circuit. I've made a bunch of these over the years, but the original Mjolnir that I made for Joey, gosh, about 10 years ago, was in this orange color. He wanted it to be like a creamsicle sort of thing. And it really turned out great when we revisited it, and we love it. It's a little bit different from this. Like I said, they all have their own unique Germanium diode pair, and they all sound great. And that's the biggest difference, is just how the diodes react to your playing, how they compress when you turn the gain up. When the gain's all the way down on any of these, they all sound basically the same. It's just pushing your clean signal and, you know, giving it a little EQ and stuff like that. But for all intents and purposes, when the gain is low on these, they should be identical, you know, barring any part tolerances. Now, recently, there have been a lot of people talking about germanium diodes. There was a pedal that hit the market that kind of set the world on fire, which shocked me because I've been using new old stock germanium for years, but never really talked much about it. All of the pedals that we make here at Mythos, if they have germanium, they are all NOS parts, either parts that I got from Ukraine or Russia, mostly all Russian parts built in the late 70s and 80s, sometimes the early 90s, or they're new old stock military spec American made stuff. That is the diodes that we use in these things. And we get really hung up on whether things should be hyped as much as they are. And, you know, it's a big part of guitar pedal history, having those original diodes. It's very exciting. But while it is a huge part of these pedals sound, even using non-germanium in one of these circuits really impacts the voice of it a lot. All these things are tuned to react and play exactly how you want them to. We take a lot of pride when we're choosing components so that it gives you, the player, the best experience. And regarding some of the older versions, we make a germanium version in this format sometimes. The Summer Vibes was like that. Occasionally we'll do some silver ones that have germanium diodes. And what that really does, let's touch on that, is changes the gain to have a little bit more compressed feel. It makes it a little fuzzier and not as biting when you turn the gain up. It just hits different. It feels a little more pillowy and soft. So that's the biggest feel thing. And from a sound standpoint, it's got a little less gain. And like I said, it's a little bit more fuzzy with a little bit more fizz. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's a cool thing that is true to what that original circuit is and the original sound that that pedal has when you peg the gain. That is really it. That is the difference between all of these Mjolnirs and everything. So far as which one is right for you, just check out the descriptions on the website and whatnot and try to decide which one fits your vibe and your setup. When comparing all of these, the bigger box ones, these seem to be the most confusing. The Wildwood stands alone. It is a copy of my Klon. It has all those things. These have the same, like increased bass, reduced treble, reduced gain. All of that is true to the Mass Street and the Joey. So it's just a lot to consider. And for the most part, I think it just comes down to what kind of vibe you want to impart to your pedal board and what look you really are drawn to. They all have their own unique personality. But that's the Mjolnirs in a nutshell. I'm going to give you a quick playthrough, just going through similar settings on all these, and check it out. Be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks you guys for watching. The channel has been growing and I really appreciate it, but I'll catch you next time. See ya.